the explosion of the mobile industry and of course online payments, the online music industry is well poised to tap into what's estimated to be a $9 billion market worldwide.
ये शाम मस्तानी मदहोश किए जा.
India, like other emerging markets, is a hotspot, and that's what's brought Saavn founder Rishi Malhotra back to his home country.
मैं रणबीर कपूर. चलो बताता हूँ म्यूजिक बजाने का फाड़ू नया तरीका. सावन, ये ऐप सब बजाता है.
Competition may be snapping at their heels, but with a war chest of $100 million in funding from Tiger Global and existing investors, as well as a few tricks up his sleeve, Rishi is truly ready to take on the online music industry. Rishi, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm happy that we got to catch you on one of your visits to Bombay, because you still go back and forth a bit, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So, tell us a little bit about Saavn and how it started, because we first heard about Saavn, of course, when you had that massive funding and it came on the map, in terms of the business, the news, the ecosystem. But this is something you've been working on for quite some time, and the idea actually evolved while you were in the US.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you for having me too, by the way. It's great to be here. So we started actually in 2007. We did not start when the funding press hit a few months ago, just so no one thinks that it's an overnight success. But the genesis of the company actually was a different business. It was a B2B business. We were taking all the content out of India and digitizing it and bringing it to a bunch of different distribution outlets, bringing it to Apple and Rhapsody and eMusic and Netflix. At that time it was also films. The genesis of the business that it is today actually was a moment in time when we sat with one of our partners and they told us that we'd become the #1 label for international world content. And me and my fellow co-founders, we got into our rental car and we said, look, we need to solve a bigger problem. We can't be a middleman. We have to be the actual service that's on phones. And that was the genesis of Saavn as a consumer company. And we built products from then on for web, for Android, and for iOS. And the rest resulted in the story that you read about our funding. Okay, so what made you decide to actually tap into the Indian market? Tell us first about a little bit about your story, the fact that you actually moved to the US, the fact that you were working there, the different things that you tried, and even the success that you achieved with the company that you set up. Sure. So, born and raised in the US, but grew up, me and my fellow co-founders are all North American South Asians, okay? So the way I like to say it is that we grew up not away from India, but as global Indians, right? So we grew up listening to Led Zeppelin and Miles Davis in my bedroom, listening to Jagjit Singh in the living room, okay? And that is very much reflective of the company that we are today. And so my personal story is I've been in the media space for many years, worked in different capacities. HBO was my largest sort of stint there. I was there for about 5 years, building HBO On Demand. And me and my fellow co-founders, got together and, decided why India, why build this, right? Number one is that it's a very huge market, and you need an addressable market of this scale, right, to build brand business. Number two is that India has this unique factor in the sense that it has the most indigenous content that is out there, and there's a huge appetite for it. But it was all pirated, right? Because consumers were digital. Well before there were a digital ecosystem or a digital medium for them, right? And the third thing about it is that we felt passionate about it. We were built by music lovers for music lovers, and that became the genesis of the business. And I think anytime you're building something, you build something that you love, and you'll build it very well. So what were some of the difficulties in transitioning to the Indian market? It's exciting, of course, but it must also have been challenging in many ways. It is challenging. I think a couple of things. I think every market has challenges. I think you have to do things that are very local to how we live and how we play and what's unique to us, and different friction that's in every market. I think that any business has its challenges, and the way you get forward is, number one is you build a great team, and number two is that you make mistakes, you make them fast, you fail, everyone's going to fail at times, but you have to get back up and build build forward. And you have to have perseverance. This is 7 years to build what is India's leading streaming music service, and I think it takes time to do that.
So take us through some of those
Sure.
examples of mistakes, or things that you learned from, particularly in the early years.
Sure.
Because you also are the leader in this particular space.
Yeah.
So neither did you have an example to go by. You had to kind of figure it out.
Right. So there's no instruction manual, as you say, right? So I think the first thing is that, we made a mistake early on where our focus was too wide. Okay, so we said we're a global product. But the truth is that we wanted to be India's music streaming service. Okay, not just an Indian music streaming service, but India's, right? Because it's English and it's Hindi and Punjabi and Telugu and Tamil and Marathi and everything. But when we were too wide, the focus was too wide, you can't do anything too well. And so what ends up happening is that your company doesn't grow and track the way you really want it to, right?
Right.
And so we narrowed focus, and as we narrowed focus, we began to, I think, take root much better as a company, right? I think you make some early mistakes in hiring. You hire because you find somebody versus the right person. And I think now we are really based on, we're a culture-centric company. We hire for skill and culture, and we won't deviate from that, because everyone contributes to the collective personality of the company, which is why people stick with us, which is why truthfully everybody is an owner in the company at Saavn. It's very unique that way, and we pride ourselves on that. We build ourselves as a different company that puts people first.
So now that you have competition snapping at your heels, what helps Saavn stand out? What's your USP? And I know it must be frustrating to hear that, given that you have already established a solid ground. But you do have challenges. I mean, the latest being in Apple Music, for instance. They may have a long way to go to catch up. But how do you convince the consumer to maintain that brand loyalty?
So I think I think competition is good, because that means there's a demand for things, right? And I think that how we win is that number one is first and foremost is the team. You build a great team, you maintain a great team. Number two is our products, right? We focus tenaciously with a fierce focus on building the best product that's out there, no matter what platform it's on. Android, of course, is our biggest platform, but Android, iOS, Windows, web, it doesn't matter. We focus on end-to-end things that other people maybe, it's not maybe in their full focal point, We focus very much on data. We're a data-centric company, and that allows us to move fast and make smart decisions and frankly be more capital efficient, than a lot of companies. And the last is brand. I think that it's very difficult to India is beautifully disorganized, no matter what you're doing, whether it's e-commerce or taxis or what we do. And the beauty of it is that you have to be native and be local and develop solutions, for the market that you sort of really measure and take root in. But ultimately, to build a brand in India, it's hard to make a dent in India that way. We have built a brand, luckily, that consumers have accepted and want. You have people walking around with Saavn tattoos and Saavn manicures, and at that point,
What's a Saavn manicure?
Oh, it's people who have literally on Instagram, they have blue manicures with Saavn logos on them, right? Yeah. Which there are other brands, competitors, that they won't actually do manicures for. So if that's a sign of anything, it's a sign that your brand has achieved a level of, I think, cultural personality, right? So I think competition is great. Apple is very important. I think we all owe a lot to Apple in terms of digital music, and we should all look up to them in various ways as a company. But what we do is very different for this market, and clearly it's working. So it's a formula that we'll stick to.
Okay, give us a sense of scale then. Give us a sense of where you're at today after all the work that's gone into it in terms of traction, in terms of library. I mean, even the office space, as you mentioned, you've managed to keep a very tight team despite the pace of growth that you've seen.
Yeah, sure. So I think, from a scale standpoint, from a content standpoint, we have, over 20 million tracks under license, probably adding another 10 million tracks this year. We're also moving beyond music into different programming assets, because Saavn itself is an entertainment platform. It's not just for music, right? From a scale standpoint, we have almost 18 million monthly active users around the globe. 14 million of them are in India. Just to give you an idea of growth, that number of 14 million is about 7x difference from 18 months ago. Right? That's how fast it's grown. We have 1.5 million users every day that use the app on a daily basis, right? One of the biggest stats I can share with you is that we move 250 million streams a month for all the labels. So really Saavn and YouTube are two of the biggest digital contributors to all the music labels that are here in India, And this is just beginning to grow. Every handset that moves, we're 95% mobile. 2.5 million handsets moving every week here, and every handset that moves wants music messaging and social.
Right.
And so we want to be the music app that's there.
All right, well, so much to do as Saavn keeps maintaining this frantic pace of growth. We're going to find out what else is on the agenda after this very quick break. Rishi, so, you know, it's interesting, and I just want to recap a little of what you were also mentioning earlier.
Sure.
You started this company in the U.S. where you were born and raised because you found, you know, a market or a need there. That concept brings you right back to India, and now it just continues to evolve, doesn't it? It's growing and evolving because you're actually looking at bringing English into your library, English tracks into your library here, for example. New options, regional. There just seems to be a multitude of things that you can do with it. What's exciting you the most?
Sure. So what's exciting us the most is that we build everything from the user backwards, right? So we built it for Indian music globally, multiple languages, 20 plus languages live. But the reason that we have English live here is because that is the market, right? So everybody's multilingual here, right? So by Prime Minister Modi says that by 2020, 60% of the population is under 30, right? And a large part of the population is bi and trilingual. One of those languages is often English. And so as a small example, 2 years ago, English was 1% of our usage. It's now 15% of our usage, right? So that has grown by huge percentage points, right? And that's because people want a mixed experience. They want Coldplay right next to Arijit Singh. And that is how we're building. We're building from the user backwards, right? We're not building any other way. And I think when you do it that way, you keep your fundamentals very straight, and you build a delightful experience. You know?
And you're also, as you mentioned, very data focused.
100%.
And the reason I can come back to that is because that's also actually playing into how you're building that experience for the consumer.
That's right.
And why someone would actually go and choose to use the app vis-a-vis anything else.
Right.
In terms of downloading pirated music, for example, or other such things, right?
Sure. So data is central intelligence for the company, right? And it's a big reason why I think we succeed the way that we do. And why is it important? Because if you look at media, right, traditional media, whether it's radio, TV, pirated content, or even a CD, there's very little data you can acquire from that. But when you stream, it's a gateway to data, right? So I see what you streamed, what you streamed after that, what songs you deleted, what songs you have on repeat, right? What you listen to in the morning, what you listen to in the evening or on your drive, whether you're connected via 2G, 3G, or Wi-Fi. All of that data we map together. So I think that we probably produce one of the biggest data sets that's available in India, especially over cellular and over mobile. And it's something that allows us to make decisions, how we hire, you know, what products we build, what features we sunset, and how we tweak things. And so, you know, a data-centric company is how we are built, very much like an Amazon or a Google.
And you're also a very social app, isn't it? And that's something I
Because
found
music
really
is social.
interesting. Exactly.
Music is social.
So tell us about that too.
Yeah, so our version of social is very different. I think a lot of people have done social as an external sharing, but actually the way we've done social is if you take it back to music, back to the roots, there used to be these double tape decks, and maybe I had a Michael Jackson CD or Michael Jackson tape, and I made a copy and I gave it to you, right? And you always had somebody who did that. And so we've taken that concept and we brought it into the apps. So I'm able to essentially tag you in music or playlists, right? In addition to that, we can have a conversation about music, right? Which is very native to India in terms of, let's say, playing on Thakshri or something through music. But also, it's just very the way human beings use music, you know? And India is very, you know, I have a firm belief that India is the only country in the world where everybody is a daily active user of music in some way, whether it's a ringtone, a ringback tone, okay, whether it's radio or, you know, devotional in the morning, whatever it might be. Everybody's a daily active user of music, right? And now everybody's a daily active user of mobile. So we're just combining the two.
So does a subscription model work here in India? It's such a price-sensitive market.
Sure.
Is that working? Do you rely more on advertising? How do you monetize it?
Sure. So we rely on both. It's a blend, okay? And I think that you have to do that because you have to give different options, right? So number one is for advertisers, we've become an incredible solution for over 250 leading brands. And advertisers look to us for very high performance and the fact that they're reaching 18 million users and we're adding 1.5 million users a month. And they love that we are reaching the right users on the right platforms.
Right.
Subscription is working in this market, and it's a very different balance than, let's say, maybe a service in the U.S. But again, as I mentioned, you know, we are typically top grossing non-gaming app in Google Play and iTunes Store.
Right.
But in addition, the biggest thing that you have to have here in emerging markets is payment systems, because credit cards are not ubiquitous, right? So as we launch more payment systems, we just launched Paytm, we're launching Ola Money, and launching a few others, we are seeing subscription track incredibly well. And I think that subscription also will turn into more than just music in the coming year or so, right?
Right. Okay, so in terms of the biggest challenges you face as well going ahead, what would they be? And also the fact that, you know, you've developed and grown a business overseas as well, even in the heart of Silicon Valley, for example. You're now seeing India in the throes of it right here, right? Which is why, of course, we're seeing the pace of growth that we are. What are the differences? How do you feel some of your experiences there have helped, for example? I know that you said that there are, of course, a lot of native problems to each place.
Sure.
But as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, sure. So I think as an entrepreneur, you know, you have to be a leader of companies, right? And as a leader of a company, I think you have to set values and you have to serve everybody that works with you, you know? So I think that the best way you do that is by example, and you build a great team and you grow leaders inside the company. I think some of the things that are challenges is it's overwhelming. You know, there's no instruction manual for this, right? There's no pattern for this. We have been one of the companies that has always done things first. We've never been first follower. We've always authored the market. You know, we are writers, you know, more than we are, you know, readers. Of course, we're aware of things, but we like to write and build features and push and trailblaze. With that comes some risk. And so some of the challenge is, you know, one is remaining humble and remaining hungry about what you're doing. I think you have to know that at any given time, you can go from first to last overnight, right? That happens in a bunch of businesses. I think that you invest in great people. I think you build assets in the company that, you know, will far outlive you. And I think you take a look at the company as the most important part of the company is, yes, it's the value it's creating, but it's really 140 people who are parking the most important use of their life here. That's what we think about. And as long as we're making the right decisions for that, the company will land exactly where it needs to land. If we're making the decisions on just valuation or just capital, I think you'll make mistakes along the way.
All right, awesome. Sounds advice there for many young entrepreneurs. We're going to take another very quick break. When we come back, we'll also have Rishi showing us some of his musical skills. Just stay tuned, back in a moment.
Is that right?
Rishi, what did your parents say when you told them that you were turning entrepreneur? Even in the States, 7-8 years ago, it must have been a little bit of a surprising decision for them.
Yeah, it definitely was. They were not happy at the time, I'll be clear about that, but I think they're very happy now. And I think, you know, I remember distinctly my dad saying, look, why do you want to take such risks? And I reminded him that in 1970, he moved to the United States from Lucknow, and he moved here with $9 and took some of the biggest risks that anyone's ever taken. I remember him telling me he didn't know if the grass was going to be the same color. So I think once I said that, he said, okay, I can't really, you know, talk him out of this one, you know. But that's, you know, that's history now. I think everybody's very proud. Everyone's families are proud. Everybody's families in the company is very proud. So, yeah.
So in terms of what you're looking forward to, there's a lot on the anvil. You've been very busy also on your marketing, branding push. Things like Freestream, tie-ups with other e-commerce players like Snapdeal, for example. Tell us what's worked.
Sure. So I think what works for us is that we like to weave Saavn into the ecosystem of the companies, right? The alpha companies in India, Flipkart, Snapdeal, Ola. And by doing that, a few things happen. One is that it's very authentic, So I say that, you know, a lot of companies spend millions of dollars on billboards. I'd rather spend millions of dollars on product and engineering, right? Because once billboards come down, so will your metrics, right? But if you build in product and engineering and you invest the same money in there, it compounds for years.
So talking about partners, you know, let's also talk about some of your investors.
Yeah, sure.
Again, how has the experience changed over time from when you first started out and interacting with investors overseas, early rounds, to what you're seeing today?
Sure. So I think it's changed in a lot of ways, but I think that investors always look for the same thing. You know, they look for a great team and a great market opportunity and some early mover advantage. And really, we are very fortunate to have some of the best investors in the world. The same companies that have backed Facebook and LinkedIn and Ola and Flipkart and many others. And I think that, you know, it's interesting when you're building a business, because when you first start out, you think that there is a separation in maybe the plane of the investor and the entrepreneur. And then as you build a company, you realize that your investors are your partners, and they're there to back you when times are great, when times are tough. And I think you see that, you know, as you grow from Series A to Series B and C, which, you know, we just raised. It tells a story in and of itself. The investors that say, look, we trust these entrepreneurs and we trust this team to build this outcome over the coming years. So look, we feel very fortunate. We couldn't be happier. We have a great investor set, and I think we have continually new investors who are coming to the table for us. So we're very happy with that.
Yeah. I think Rishi is an outstanding CEO, and then the whole team of Saavn, all the co-founders, Rishi as well, are a great bunch of people. I think two things that set them apart. Number one, they are extremely energetic. They know what they're doing, and they've put together a company which is a global company coming out of India. And I think that's the reason why we feel that they would continue to be ahead of the competition. So Rishi is a great product guy, along with being a CEO, and that shows in the fact that Saavn is the strongest product in the country in the music streaming side.
Tell us a little bit more about the culture as well that you try to create here at Saavn, what you bring to the table also as a leader.
Sure. So our culture is really important to us. In fact, we have 10 cultural principles, which is how we measure ourselves, right? And I think one is that we put people first, you know. I think that we encourage people to serve feedback hot, is what we say, right? Because a lot of times people waste a lot of time maybe being too polite. We say, let's be professionally impolite. Let's make everybody better. I think we surround ourselves with the truth. I think if you don't have people who tell you the truth about your business, you're very far away from it. And I think, you know, it's really important that we keep our character right as a company. You know, we don't compete against each other. I think we've built a company where everyone has a voice, no matter what their role is in the company. People tell me I'm wrong every day, and I listen to them every day.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, all we can do as founders and management is live those values, you know, and I think it's how we hire, and I think it's how we grow people. And the proof, truthfully, is in the product position. You cannot become a leading company and the leading product. All of that is a lagging indicator of the company you have inside. If your company is messed up and your company is imbalanced, it will show in your products. It will show in the marketing. And so that's the best report card I can give you.
All right, so I know that you also have a musical flair, and you promised that you'd play something for us today. So let's bring out that guitar,
Sure,
right?
sure.